Hey everybody, welcome back to Whiskey Central. If you're new here, my name is Shayla, and today we're reviewing Bruichladdich, the classic Laddie. Oh my god, guys. I wish I could send little samples to you guys, because it's so freaking good. So I've got some super cool history for you today, but if you want to skip around to other parts of the video, there's timestamps in the description box below. And if you enjoy whiskey reviews, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any new videos. Bruichladdich was built in 1881 by the Harvey brothers, who inherited a lot from their father. Unfortunately, the brothers had a falling out before Bruichladdich was completed, and it stopped distilling in 1907. After the war, the stocks were depleted, and Bruichladdich started distilling again in 1919. Depression led the distillery to close in 1929, and there was a fire at the distillery in 1934. After a falling out with his brothers, one of the brothers, William, ran the distillery on his own until he passed away in 1936. Bruichladdich was sold 5 times to different companies between 1937 and 1968. In 1968, Invergordon became the owner, and they ran the distillery until a merger with White & Mackay in 1993. It was deemed no longer needed by White & Mackay and closed in 1995. It was mothballed until 2000, when Mark Renier and a group of investors bought the Bruichladdich distillery for 6.5 million euros. After reading about him, he seems kind of like an industry bad boy. He started an independent bottling company before he purchased Bruichladdich distillery, and he did a bottling of Laphroaig, and on the label he said something like single malt from Laphroaig distillery, and Laphroaig sued him for trademark infringement. Then later on he did another bottling, and he said, due to recent litigation we are unable to disclose the name of the distillery. They also called the product Leapfrog, which got them sued again. After buying Bruichladdich in 2000, the real test would be to get it back up and running. Renier recruited native Iliac Jim McEwen, who used to skip school to sweep floors at the Bowmore distillery. He worked at Bowmore for almost 40 years at the time, but bravely came on as the production director at Bruichladdich. With the help of Duncan McGillivray, the previous head brewer at Bruichladdich, the distillery was put back together again. It uses old Victorian equipment, but they also bought a distillery for cheap so they could use it for parts. They started producing again in 2001. While their new whiskey was aging, they had 1.2 million liters of stocks to work with, dating back to 1984. They released a lot of limited editions to stay afloat, and they also diversified with a new line called Port Charlotte. To get press, they also ran a release saying that they're the most alcoholic single malt ever made, because their unaged spirit is 90% alcohol. The Scotch Whisky Association called this irresponsible, which was kind of a motto that the Bruichladdich distillery ran with. James May from Top Gear even used the unaged spirit for fuel in a race car. Bruichladdich is Gaelic for raised beach or gentle slope of the sea. They have 3 main brands: Bruichladdich, which they call unpeated, Port Charlotte, which is heavily peated, and Octomore, which I guess you would call super mega heavily peated. They also have a lot of wine and sherry cask finishings, and almost all of the bottlings, if not all of the bottlings from Bruichladdich, are non-colored, non-chill filtered, and around 50% ABV. Bruichladdich like to emphasize that they're non-colored and non-chill filtered, as well as their barley type. They've released barley-specific whiskeys like beer barley and organic, and they've even convinced Islay farmers to grow barley for them, which is the first time since World War I that your Islay whiskey could be made with Islay barley. This focus on location has helped Bruichladdich become the largest private employer on the island with about 60 people. In 2011, the new spirit turned 10. They released the Laddie 10, which is what this used to be called. They couldn't really keep up with the production though, so they had to take the age statement off of the bottle. In 2012, Remy Cointreau bought the Bruichladdich distillery for $92 million. Only one of the board members was against the sale, the main man who brought Bruichladdich back to life, Mark Renier. He was asked to leave when the sale was finalized. The deal allowed Bruichladdich to double production and open the distillery to Remy's large international distribution network. Jim McEwen left a few years later to retire, but I believe he's now helping out at the new Islay distillery, Ardenhoe. Bruichladdich is now run by head distiller Adam Hannett, who trained under Jim McEwen. One of the most famous places to drink Bruichladdich, other than the distillery, is a place called Artisan in Wishaw. I hope I'm saying that right. The chef Derek Mather has amassed quite the collection of Bruichladdich, There's 3,700 whiskeys there, and 2,400 of them are open. Alright, so let's get into the details of this whiskey. This bottle will run you about $55. It's owned by Remy Cointreau, and it's located on Islay in Scotland. Alright, and this next part just makes my nerd heart so happy. On the back of this bottle, there's an L code. Mine was 15-113. And if you go to Bruichladdich website, I think it's bruichladdich.com/enter my code or something like that, you click on the classic Laddie bottle, and it will give you a detailed breakdown of what barley types went in there, the minimum age of the bottle. This one was, I think it was 81 casks, and it also tells you how many barley varieties and stuff like that, vintages. But 81 casks, 79 of which were first fill ex-bourbon casks, and 2 which were first fill sherry butts. It also tells you that the minimum age on this bottle is 7 years old. It was bottled in 2015, back when Jim McEwen was the master distiller. It even has Jim McEwen's signature on the bottle, but your bottle will probably say Adam Hannett. It's made from 100% Scottish-grown malted barley, and it says unpeated on the bottle, but it's actually about 5 parts per million peat, so there's just a little kind of hint of peat in here. And one of the best things about this whiskey is that it's 50% ABV. Scotch whiskey makers, please take note, 50% ABV, non-colored and non-chill filtered. It doesn't really get any better than that, other than cask strength. So I'm going to pour a dram of this, let it sit for about 10 minutes, and I'll be right back.
A few moments later.
Alright, I've let this open up for about 10 minutes. Let's go in for a nose. So the first thing I get is that just like ex-bourbon cask matured is kind of the first like note, if that's a note. It's not really, but you can kind of just smell when a Scotch is bourbon cask matured, and it's like kind of quintessentially smells like this. And then I'm getting different fruit notes than a lot of other reviewers are getting. I got kind of melon and apricot and some coconut, and I noticed on a ton of reviews I was watching, it was like pear and apple. A bunch of people were saying pear and apple, so I don't know if my nose is not working or if maybe my batch is a little bit different than everybody else's, but I'm not really getting pear or apple, but you might if you get this. So, but I'm getting more like melon, apricot, a little bit of coconut. Oh man. Then there's this wonderful maltiness, some butterscotch as well, and then I get vanilla on this, and I say vanilla in every single review, but this one is like vanilla, like the most vanilla I've ever got on anything. A vanilla bomb, I guess you could call it. And then there's a little bit of kind of a light citrus note, maybe a little bit of lemon. And then this is the coolest thing about having a very lightly peated malt from Islay. They call it unpeated, but it's got a little bit of peat in it, is that you get this kind of brininess from Islay, like this briny salt. It's just a little bit, like it's not overpowering or anything, but you don't really get that on any Speyside scotches or, Highland, maybe some island scotches, but it's kind of cool to have an Islay whiskey with a little bit of that briny kind of coastal influence, but be sweet and not smoky. I don't know, it's cool. And then there's this kind of fresh crispness, and I get this a lot on bourbon cask matured whiskeys. I don't even know how to explain it except like fresh or crisp, like it kind of cuts through. I don't know if that makes any sense. If you guys know what I'm talking about, please leave a comment down below to say that I'm not crazy. And then you get the baking spices from the cask as well. And then I get this wonderful note, which kind of goes along with the vanilla, but it's like the inside of a bear claw, but it's filled with like that almond, buttery kind of cream thing. I get it on a lot of scotch, but this one is hitting home. All right, let's go for a sip. Cheers, guys. My God, that's so good. So you get a little bit of peatiness, just like a whisper though. It's kind of just barely there. Get a little bit of salt, kind of that briny saltiness. A little bit of vanilla and butterscotch as well. And then you get that oak spice. A lot of that kind of bourbon-y oak spice on the palate. And then there's a little bit of earthiness. Definitely not overpowering, just kind of a little bit balances that sweetness pretty nicely. Let's go for another sip. Cheers. Man. It's got a wonderful kind of oily texture up front. I think the combination of 50% alcohol and the non-chill filtering really leaves kind of a nice texture, nice mouthfeel. Pretty well balanced, I would say. Probably medium to long finish. Yeah, this is really nice. So I'm going to finish it up and I'll be right back with my recommendation. So each batch is a little bit different. Mine happened to be mostly ex-bourbon cask matured. Mine was also from back in 2015 when Jim McEwen was still the master distiller. Adam Hannett is the new master distiller. And after watching a review of one of his bottles, I think he uses a little bit more wine cask in his whiskeys. So this was from Jim McEwen. It's mostly ex-bourbon cask. First fill. So hard to say what an Adam Hannett bottle will taste like. But if it tastes anything like this, I'm gonna freaking love it. This is an absolutely stunning whiskey. It's my new favorite whiskey. I remember way back when I saw a video of Aquavitae talking about how ex-bourbon cask matured whiskeys are the best. And I thought, there's no way. You got sherry, you got port, whatever. But now I know what he means. So I am going to hunt for another bottle of this. It's 15-113. Hopefully I can find another bottle because I'm tearing through this. As soon as I found out it was a Jim McEwen, I've kind of stopped because I don't want it to disappear and never be able to taste this again. But I'm going to hunt for some Jim McEwens from 2015. Hopefully they will be very similar to this. And I do want to try an Adam Hannett bottle. I'll maybe put a comment down below if I do try one, just to kind of tell you if I feel like they're very different or if they're very similar. But Adam trained under Jim McEwen, so I feel like he's probably got the same sort of thing going on. And this was Jim McEwen's kind of brainchild, so I feel like Adam Hannett is probably trying to hopefully represent that and kind of represent where he learned to make whiskey from. And I only have one gripe with this bottle, and it's that I can't see the fill level. It feels very substantial. The bottle feels like it weighs a lot, so it's very hard to tell how much whiskey is left. I do wish they had just a little kind of strip going down the back that could give you an indication of the fill level, but other than that, this is absolutely stunning. I think that this is the base for what all Scotch whiskey should be. It's 50% ABV, non-colored and non-chill filtered. I wish every Scotch in the world had those specifications. If you like this bottle, you'll probably enjoy the Balvenie 12-year single barrel, which is ex-bourbon cask matured, or the Balblair 12-year, which is also ex-bourbon cask matured. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Whiskey Central. Next week, I'll be reviewing Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch C920, so if you don't want to miss out, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, leave it a like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. I have like 17 paragraphs to get through, so there's gonna probably be so many bloopers, guys. It's gonna be great for you. Scotch Malt Whiskey Association. Scotch Whiskey Association. Brothers had a falling out. Nope. Oh god, it's gonna be so painful. Okay. Brought Bruichladdich for now. Fuck. Only have a few more little chunks of history to get through. It's 6 o'clock, but we're fine.